Hello class, today we're going to be talking about absolute value. So absolute value is the distance between a number and zero. When we think of distance, we could think of it in terms of the real world, like you're so far away from your house, it takes you 10 miles to get to the grocery store. Maybe your friend's house is just, I don't know, 200 feet down the road. Those are distances. Another way to think about distance could be on maybe a board game or a football field, whereas let's say we're starting here at go. The distance between go and this railroad, we can count the amount of spaces it would take us to get from go to the railroad. So if I start at go, this is my first space. So it takes me one space, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the distance between go and this railroad is 5 spaces. I could calculate the distance between maybe this chance right here and this electric company. So if I start here, and I can use a different color for that. If I start here on chance, and I want to get all the way here to electric company, I can take a couple hops. Again, I'm starting here, so my first step is 1, 2, 3, 4. So depending on how far we're going, I mean, obviously it's going to be bigger or smaller, but it's interesting to note that couldn't we also find the distance between go and maybe this railroad up here? And I can use a different color for this as well. So let's say I want to start here at go and I want to get up to this railroad. I mean, I could start at the railroad and go forwards, but I can go backwards as well. If I start here, I can think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was 5 spaces this way. It was 5 spaces this way. So you'll notice no matter if I'm going forwards or backwards, it still ends up being the same distance. We could think of that on a football field as well. If I'm right here at the 50-yard line and I go this far, I could count how far it takes me to get there. So it looks like each one of these small lines is 1 yard. The bigger lines are 10, so I could think of it as 5, 10, 15. But I can also go backwards, right? Let's say I'm traveling the opposite direction. Maybe green isn't a good color for that. Maybe I'm traveling the opposite direction. I could think of that as going backwards as well. 1, 2, took me 3 hops or 5 each, which gets me to 15. So this idea of distance is going to be really important when we talk about absolute value. To find the absolute value, I just want to know how far away it is from 0. So you'll notice -2 is 2 spaces away from 0. So the absolute value of -2 is 2. 2 is so many spaces away from 0. So we can find the absolute value by just figuring out how many spaces away it is from 0. And I want you guys to pause the video and I want you to figure out if you can figure out the absolute value. So if I start here at 2, 2 is 2 spaces away from 0, which means the absolute value of 2 is 2. You'll notice they have the same exact absolute value. No matter if it's -2 or +2, they're both the exact same space away from 0. They're exactly 2 away from 0. But be careful. You got to make sure the negative is on the inside or the outside of the absolute value symbol. It could be inside or it could be outside. So you'll notice there right underneath I have the absolute value of -3, but I also have the negative absolute value of 3. So they look very similar. They have negative signs, they have the absolute value symbol, they have 3's, but you'll notice one of them has it on the inside of the absolute value bar and the other one has it on the outside. So if it's on the outside, you have to find the absolute value first and then just make it negative. Remember, because the negative symbol is really talking about the opposite. So in this case, the absolute value of -3, well, if I look up here on my number line, I know -3 is 1, 2, 3 away from 0. But if I talk about the negative absolute value of 3, I'm saying, okay, let's find the absolute value of 3 first. So the absolute value of 3 would be 1, 2, also 3. But remember, that negative sign is still there. That negative sign is going to come out here, and it's going to make it a negative number. So I want you guys to work on some of these problems on your own. When we come back as a class, we will review and go over the answers.